Good Wednesday afternoon. Thanks for joining us, everyone, on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Morgan Wolf. The big top story of the day, it is day 2 of State Senator Nicole Mitchell's burglary trial happening right now in Becker County. She is accused of breaking into the Detroit Lakes home of her stepmother. Mitchell says that she was trying to get back items that belonged to her late father. Today, police and special investigators took the stand for the prosecution. They both said that Mitchell's stepmother was scared and that she was there to kill her, not take items belonging to her father. That trial is expected to last about a week. Check out this brand new video today showing flames shooting out of a Sun Country engine as it was leaving Los Angeles. Passengers say about a half hour after the plane took off, they heard a boom and then noticed the engine fire. Just look at it there. That plane had to turn around and land back at LAX. Thankfully, though, no one was hurt. Right now, the FAA is investigating what happened. A look at today's markets this afternoon as Wall Street reacts to the new Producer Price Index report released just today. It shows that producers did not raise prices in June despite a forecast increase. Wall Street also a little shaky as President Trump said that he, quote, talked about the concept of firing the head of the Federal Reserve. Trump has been critical of Jerome Powell for not lowering interest rates quickly. Back to the reports, the numbers suggest that President Trump's tariffs are taking a small bite out of the U.S. economy. The Tuesday report showing the consumer prices rose 2.7% in June. That is 0.3% higher than in May. A slight reversal from the overall downward trend that has been happening this year. Meantime, any peace between Russia and Ukraine doesn't appear to be close. New video today shows the aftermath of Russian strikes in Ukraine in President Zelensky's hometown. Right now, the U.S. is getting more involved in the war, sending weapons to NATO partners overseas who can then share the weapons with Ukraine. Some officials, though, worried the terms given by President Trump give Putin too much extra time. Kerr Simons is in Moscow with how Russians feel about the latest deal.
Hey there, good day to you. Still no response from President Putin to President Trump's peace deal ultimatum. Russian ministers have been dismissing the deadline, but of course, here in Russia, it is only one man's opinion that really counts. The man inside the Kremlin behind me there, President Putin. President Zelensky has been praising the new approach at the White House, saying the Russians only respond to pressure. But of course, we know that President Putin is a man who does not easily yield to pressure. We've been talking to Russians on the streets of Moscow here, many of them defiant, saying they're not frightened by those reports that President Trump spoke with President Zelensky about the potential of long-range missiles hitting the capital here, Moscow, and St. Petersburg in Russia. The White House at first saying that that conversation did happen, but that President Trump wasn't pushing for it, wasn't suggesting there should be more killing. And then questioned yesterday on camera, President Trump was asked whether President Zelensky should hit Moscow, and he said no, he should not. There are, according to the Russians, feelings of uncertainty about what exactly the White House is asking for. That's from Russian ministers, suggesting that this 50-day deadline isn't clear, that it's not clear exactly what is expected there. But again, ultimately, and this is what we're waiting for, we need to hear from President Putin to know exactly what Russia's stance is. Keir Simmons, NBC News, Moscow.
Now to Texas, the devastation from the deadly flooding keeps getting worse. Today, officials are sharing the death toll now sits at 134 and more than 100 people are still missing. We're also learning more about what happened before the water started rising. The first alert about life-threatening flash flooding was sent around 1:14 a.m. on July 4th, but it did not include an evacuation order. A family spokesperson tells us that camp director Richard Eastland started to assess the situation and then immediately in the process contacted his family by walkie-talkie. Now, campers started getting relocated between 2 and 2:30 in the morning. An Eastland family spokesperson says there was no information available concerning the magnitude of what was coming. It wasn't until 4:03 a.m. that the National Weather Service issued a more dire warning for Kerr County, advising people to move to higher ground. Camp director Eastland did die while trying to rescue girls from a cabin near the Guadalupe River. Now, some of the girls who survived the Camp Mystic flooding are working to raise money for the destroyed camp. People waited in long lines to get lemonade and cookies from a group called Fort Worth Mystic Girls. Just days after being evacuated from the camp, the girls were very busy organizing the lemonade and bake sale, and more than $63,000 has been raised in 4 hours. Right now, we are learning more about what is causing so many honeybees to die. Beekeepers say that it's an unprecedented loss and could impact what you pay for things at the grocery store, and it's not necessarily honey. Here's Jennifer Hoff.
At the University of Minnesota,
It's not a news story if you don't go home smelling like a campfire.
being schooled on bees
I'm doing tiptoe beekeeping here.
is to avoid being stung,
I'm going to just go ahead
but more so
and see what we see.
to figure out why they're dying, something entomologist Rebecca Masterman
Oh, here she is.
has studied here for years.
It's not sustainable to have such high losses in an industry and to keep having to come back from those losses.
Honeybees were first hardest hit in 2008. Now, more than half of the colonies across the country have collapsed in just the last year, totaling 1.6 million.
Right now, enemy number one for the honeybee it's a mite called Varroa destructor.
The tiny bug was discovered in Florida 40 years ago that spreads viruses easily, especially since bees travel miles to find food.
It's the most challenging, I think, livestock to manage because of that. And that's part of the reason why we're in trouble right now.
Infected colonies can be hard to stop and spot, affecting the larva first.
Instead of the larvae being that really pearly white color, I might see discoloration.
Each colony can consist of some 80,000 bees,
Take a good look.
made up of mostly females and a few hundred males meant only to mate with the queen,
It smells like honey. Yep.
doing their best to survive
This colony is nice and healthy.
with a little help
No problems.
from those who know best.
The news isn't good, but at least we're not in the dark.
In St. Paul, Jennifer Hoff,
There. Colony inspected.
KARE 11 News.
Well, the die-offs are hitting commercial beekeepers hardest, who often send their bees out west to then pollinate fruit trees. But fewer bees could mean a smaller crop and higher prices, particularly for almonds, blueberries, and apples. A heads up for drivers in Minneapolis. There will be new eyes on you this fall, watching whether you are obeying traffic laws. Traffic cameras will be watching for speeders starting in September. They're spread out across the city in areas that have had issues with speeding and are within 2,000 feet of a school. A first violation will be a warning, then it is at least a $40 ticket. The city plans to add more speed cameras early next year. The race for a spot in the Minnesota House opened up this week, a spot that shouldn't even be open. It's for Melissa Hortman's seat. A handful of people are saying that they want to honor her legacy and are trying to continue her work, so they're running. Here's Jessica Hart.
Moving forward doesn't mean forgetting the past.
No one could have foreseen this happening.
Tragedy took a great leader from us, and this definitely wasn't on any of our bucket lists for this summer.
An item no one wanted to check: running for a vacant House seat.
I feel the weight every day since her passing.
Jung-Pao Lee is a health equity strategist for the state's health department, a former Brooklyn Park city councilman who knew Melissa Hortman better than most.
We saw her walking the dogs and Mark,
She was his representative and neighbor.
It's those little interactions that we miss.
1 month ago, Melissa, her husband Mark, and their dog Gilbert were killed.
She was a fierce leader and compassionate person.
A leader not easily replaced.
Definitely carries a lot of weight. I'm not gonna fill her shoes or her heels, as some folks have told me. She was Speaker of the House for a long time.
A weight Christian Eriksen feels too.
I didn't have the same opportunity to get to know her the way other people did, but I think we all know what a force she was and kind of a fearless spokesperson.
Christian works at Lutheran Seminary and currently sits on the Brooklyn Park City Council.
And I think that kind of fearlessness is something that will be hard to fill, hard to replace.
Why do you want to fill this role?
I don't think people always think of places like Brooklyn Park and Coon Rapids when they're thinking about infrastructure, community needs, the way they do of Minneapolis or St. Paul or Duluth.
Everything that she led, that we were able to achieve, means so much to so many people. I wanted to be able to take up that legacy.
Knowing federal cuts are possible, both of them say healthcare is a top priority.
I want to be able to mitigate that as much as possible for our seniors, for our children, for our people with disabilities, for our veterans, for our single parents.
I really want to push for single-payer healthcare in Minnesota, or making Minnesota Care available for any Minnesotan who wants to buy into that system.
Melissa's death is on both of their minds, but they both know she would want the community to move forward.
We are the ones that we've been waiting for, you know? If not now, then when, right? If not us, then who?
I think it is on people's mind, but also I think there's a lot of us who are unwilling to let that fear bind us from serving our communities.
And on our way to break, how about a quick hit of nature? Check out this incredible video from Iceland showing a volcano near the capital city of Reykjavik. A giant hole that you're seeing lava spew from there is about half a mile long. That's big. The country's geological office says that this is a relatively small eruption and is not affecting any flights in or out of the country.